Shirley here with Celestialis Monsol, our Saturn day, Sun in the 8th house, and Ascendant Libra, which is a good time to talk about Libra. No, Sun in the 7th house, and Moon in the 8th house, ruling over Jupiter. And both Jupiter and Libra, particularly because of Spica in Libra, are associated with what is true, but also with what is justice. While Mars is the action or the enacting of, Libra is what is justice, or where, in what area, or how do we see justice can also be shown by which house is Libra. For example, Libra is first house. Justice can be regarding the self. With the opposite is Aries, which is identity, and it can be justice as the ability to be oneself. Libra in the second house, justice can have to do with, first of all, justice is a value, and it can also be a skill. And this is where, also when we talk about justice, this is one of this house of hate, so justice can also be, even regarding astral matters, becoming physical. And justice can be, of course, the right, for example, justice when it comes to vocation, when it comes to autonomy over, let's say, the income. Justice, Libra in third house, can be justice among siblings, to be treated well, also materially. It's not an 8th house like inheritance war, but it's more like, when we think about siblings, if one, I don't know, gets a special gift, then usually as parents, particularly with the Libra there, it was like, okay, then the other child will also need to compensate for, to give them also some gift or so. Is also regarding communication and balanced communication. By the way, Chiron in third house or Chiron Mercury sign can be that this balance of communication was disturbed by violent offense. Libra in fourth house. Justice can be regarding the balance in gender roles. The design, also it can be design of the house, the ability to design a home in a balanced way. Also it can be to do with upbringing. For example, if people grew up, let's say, Pluto Librans may relate, if the family grew up, let's say, in cults, then gender roles can be terribly skewed, or because there were degradation rituals, so the boys were raped and they were called whore, and then they would have problems to develop intimacy. And that, of course, affected the real estate, so many people, Libra fourth houses, may seek justice where They don't have to rape or be raped at home for having a home. Because Libra is relational, and fourth house is one of the relational houses. Of course, also not between parents and children and so on, which is supposed to be not even both of them are not even needing to be said, but we see with Epstein files that this was actually not so common sense or common practice. Fourth house justice can also be about having a home. Fifth house justice can be around children. People with Libra fifth house, they can be, if there is connection to the 10th house, to the second house, they can be good consultants when it comes to custody or the jurisdiction around children, but also justice to children. It can also be around hobbies, the right to do, let's say, I don't know, the right to even have time for hobbies, if it's like work-life balance. For example, I would not be surprised if there would be Libra fifth houses litigating against the Epstein ring, because this was something that was supposed to be like hobby, but it was network of connections, and it had to do with basically the children that nobody came to save, perpetuating violence towards children. It's one of the most difficult truths that make it very challenging to actually tackle the topic and find good solution, so that we will not, so that we will discontinue those practices. And in case of my grandfather family, I think the family was discontinued. Like they lived in a rural place in Ukraine, but and but for me, when I heard about, let's say, what the True dossiers or Epstein dossier, I was like, wait a second, they're going to Holocaust. Yes, they're going to Holocaust. They also try to generate Holocaust. They will generate Holocaust. There's nobody to, there's no grown adult there, and all the children are abused. So, and then immediately I try to explain that to the people, so that from the people there would be people that can, first of all, negate the agenda of like death and concentration camps and so on and so forth. Um, but also I really saw coming like the extortion calls and all the Epstein dossiers. Sixth house justice can be about pets, the rights of pets, um, and also around work, the rights of pets, the rights of work, and when it comes to our health, particularly of physical health, so medical negligence, but also sixth house will be if somebody has routine where they go to the gym, then things that happen there, but also under this type of jurisdiction can be. So work-related matters, health-related matters, and this is also where the person would need, depending on where Venus is, this is also where they would need things to be just or to be balanced. Seventh house, partnerships and open enemies. It can be business partnerships, but it also can be, just like the third house, neighbors disputes with the neighbors that live in the door in front of the person's door, or door in front of door. Um, On a mundane level, seventh house can be um, it can be one of the houses that can associate together with the ninth house and the 12th maybe to international courts of justice, because it is allies and enmities. When it comes to the mundane level, is basically the jurisdiction of diplomatic relations. Or it can be, I don't know, ambassadorship I think is more ninth house, but it can also be seventh house if it's like um, neighboring country. It can be third house, but this is, so these people, they can be, it's important for them, for justice to them, when they hear justice immediately, what would pop to their minds would be marital issues or business issues of business partners. Um, eighth house. Eighth house is the everything that turns to intergenerational wealth. Um, Eighth house is also one of the occult houses, which means justice here is also regarding the psychological and the occult. Um, Usually these people will see into the esoteric meaning of jurisdiction. Um, for example, if people use occult to try to prevent people from having access to justice, or it house can also be traumas that are not seen, that are in between one and another. Um, Eighth house Libra is actually quite a difficult placement. If the house is, it means that the traumas and that the intergenerational traumas have to do with justice. I have eighth house Libra tropically with whole sign houses, and indeed, one part for the family survivors of concentration camps that may have been discontinued a lot of the lineage because and another part is um, yes, the grandfather was a truck driver. I don't know. I heard, I heard the stigmas around truck drivers only this year. I almost dated a truck driver once. I met him at airport, but the only reason I did not date because I was not in situation in my life that was for dating. Um, yes, 22 Mars in the ninth house. Um, but the physiognomy of the face looked Jew, but the family Christian, and very Christian was back then. Later, the uncle was fired from church, and he started speaking in Lucifer. So, and so intergenerational trauma can be associated with occult, as but as always, because this is eighth house, but um, with matters of justice. Um, Libra is both justice and trade, and um, yeah. So those things can be, for people that have Libra 8th house, they can be, if well aspected Venus, they can be mediators in marriage, divorce, consolidation of wealth, taking into account the esoteric and the occultistic. Or consolidation of and mediation between occultistic traditions. Justice is seen as curation, but also wealth consolidation is seen as curation. These people will be very aware of the balance of energies when it comes to joint wealth or the wealth after marriage or inheritances or and but also in cases where people are supposed to, let's say, work in a certain type of sector or business in order to inherit, let's say, a trust fund, tending to it that they will not have to commit war crimes in order to enjoy, let's say, a family wealth. Okay, so that the teeth of the children do not have to rot for the family that ate unripe fruit. And that can require consolidation if they are living victims of, let's say, the family lore. and and for example, I live in Israel. I know Israel is being accused of using dark occult on nations. And I know that also other nations use dark occult. Um, and so this is something that an 8th house Libra would pay attention to. And then when my, how should I say that? My perspective is always to abolish rape, to abolish ritual abuse, and no torture. So, and this is a global, not a personal. Um, ninth house, ninth house Libra. Ninth house Libra can be jurisdiction teachers and philosophers. These are people that the teaching of jurisdiction, international trade, international court of justice, philosophy of justice. These are people that when they think of justice or where is justice supposed to be, then those people, but also justice when it comes to, let's say, the unequal relations in academic institutions. These are people that are very aware of the funding For example, I know about case where there was litigation where the woman that was in charge of prosecuting, let's say, sex offenders within academia, she had joint research with one of the people. He took the money because he ran a sex cult from the academia, Israel. But it's not only in Israel. And then this lady tries to convince a woman, and the woman, she was a victim. Not only that, the woman was a victim also of physical assault, but she did not remember the physical assault. And this woman worked these the statistics and so on, got convinced that she's going to bring justice, and then the lady that was in charge of litigations of sex offenders got the money and discharged everything, let the offender work, and let that lady be harassed by a death cult. Okay, but these women are basically, they are raped and trafficked for several years until she decided to litigate also academia and so on and so forth. So I was going to talk about cultural revolution and how with all this, both the culture of, movies and so on and so forth, after such thing like Epstein list, where people want to, yes, how should I say, purge the trauma, is no wonder that there is cultural revolution, because really everything needs to be completely transformed. 10th house Libra. So 10th house is one of the classical public houses career, and much like the 4th house, it can be to do with parenting, and 10th house can be simply that the person is a judge or a litigator, and then and this is where these people would, if they have midheaven there particularly, they might concern themselves with the reputation of the people. For example, when we think about this, that it doesn't matter what she was wearing, doesn't matter so on and so forth, or what, I don't know, if she monogamous, not monogamous, if she had previous partners, not have previous partners, no one has right to violate sexual boundaries. That would be 10th house Libra. Of course, when system is corrupted, then the reputation of such judge, that is, if judge blames, let's say, the victim, and particularly around like clothing or what they had lovers, not had lovers, what, I don't know, then the reputation of the judge can be balanced. What do I mean? With Libra is this balancing sign. We saw all the jokes where they see, I don't know, man comes to complain about the crime, and they would ask him, wait a second, what were you wearing? What was this? What was that? This can be a 10th house type of thing. Also, when we think about the fashion being associated with Epstein's, this can be 10th house. But also about parenting, custody, and the juristication. When it comes to, yes, also what if parent is capable of being parent, not capable of being parent, Again, we see with the Epsteins how the infiltration to all these systems affected just infiltrating the justice system. Look how many things. 11th house Libra. 11th house Libra, traded companies. While accountants can be a more 8th house, publicly traded companies and global trade, particularly if they're 9th house connections, whereas the more hidden sector would be 12th house. Also, media and communication, it can be both 3rd house but also 11th house. For example, connections between 10th and 11th house can be somebody's name in, let's say, circle of acquaintances, or 3rd house, 11th house, media publications, and so on and so forth. And then with Libra we have this kind of, yes, balancing act. If I take a look, for example, at the topic of, let's say, the Me Too, where it was in favor, the right of the public to know, and the importance of the curation, as testimony, as curation, public recognition for the victims, that was more important than the due process was taken a step back. It was once in a millennia where the clock ticked. It of course opened to without this we would not be able to discuss, let's say, how does a sex offender become sex offender, and so on and so forth. The network of mind control that creates sex offenders, and so on and so forth. And but then I see Libra as this balancing, and then several years later I would see this issue coming up with the smear campaigns against, let's say, yes, people that survived, let's say, sexual trauma. The way I see and address this, the culture need to be changing, but this can eventually compound to lifelong compensations. Think about the fact that the wars were created because people raped children to loss of sense of self and mind control, and those that couldn't escape were the ones that compiling the strategy, the timing, and the, and the yes, 12th house. 12th house justice can be regarding what people call scandals, but also justice when it comes to hospitals and jails, particularly when it comes to mental health. So 12th house Libra is good for them to tend to the rights of people in I'm sorry, rights is an Aries word. Um, um, to matters of jurisdiction when it comes to, these are the people, for example, that would be good to tend into the topics of false imprisonment, um, what ethics of imprisonment and ethics of, let's say, hospitals or mental health. um, this is also an astral, a dream house, and again, without this can be also people that can call to the epistemics of Juristication, because 12th house is the how do we know that we know. It's very difficult for me to explain to you why right now. Maybe I'm biased because I have 12th house Aquarius and it relates to me to philosophy of science. So um, 12th house is also about justice regarding the dream state and the astral state. Um, the 12th house is also, let's say a patient was in therapy, that would usually be 8th house. Patient left therapy. If the psychologist still harasses them in the astral, this is already 12th house. But also, these people can be at the jurisdiction and the trade when it comes to resorts, secluded places. So, for example, 12th house can be people that litigated for the real estate of the Epstein Island or the misconduct in Epstein Island. And these people would have to address also the occultistic from the, particularly the astral, the dream, the psychic attacks, is very 12th house. Yes, so this is Libra. Jupiter is also about truth and justice, and is also philosophical and religious. If I think about Lilith in Sagittarius, we think and we conjoin Jupiter and Libra. For example, Jupiter was conjoined in Spica during the Me Too. And this is because we had to change the philosophy of how we think about due process when the nature of sex offenses negates coherent testimony, the ability to testify in court, the ability to face offender, um, the fact that judges did those things, and it's still relevant, of course. And it creates a lack of accessibility to the juristic system by the victim. which of course can generate, if not 10 to 2, a Mark the Throw. Okay, that's the thing, particularly when in therapy they this is one of the harsh truths about juristication when it comes to these type of offenses, because while Jupiter entails choice, when a child is tortured or when somebody is tortured to loss of sense of self, there isn't even a self. So of course choice is a discussion that and to be victim of that, and um, unfortunately I had the honor, and I can tell you it was only a matter of circumstances that I'm here speaking today, where other people would be on Epstein list. Because all the society gathers against the victim, and because it's a cultistic violation, then the people that get the support are the offenders, and then the person that was raped um, doesn't even get with the access to justice or jurisdiction or whatnot. And I had to study philosophy of science, astrology, uh, the basics about esoterics, the nature of holistic healing, medicine and holistic medicine for not for how should I say it, for holistic medicine I studied for certification, but the medicine formed the philosophy of the medicine. I had to know, yes, I know Hebrew, I know English. I was able to listen to lectures at Dutch, at German once, and Dutch to some degree, and I had to learn philosophy of law all by myself, none of it to do with my certifications, except for holistic healing and um, politics, linguistics, in order to be standing here. And even still, the amount of times I was tortured in ways that are supposed to be invisible by science caused me to call to declassification of classified projects and classified technology. Um, the change of taking into account the people that are channelers and readers when it comes to solving cold cases in places that in the past did not turn to these for tips. Um, and I can say um, most of this is not accessible for the common person. Most common people will not be alive right now. And if they would not be able to speak. And if they would, then the system were against them. And it's very rare when person has, with all these credentials and all these self-studies and the compromising of all this knowledge, to achieve one thing, so that even from infants people will not be raped, enslaved, or tortured. And but I dedicated this episode to this intent.